welcome everybody to our decommissioning ceremony for our old City Hall. We're so happy to see you all here. Thank you for being here. We have a lot of comments up here, so we'll get started. I'm going to turn to you, Vice Mayor, and let you go.
Thank you, Mayor. Of course, we have to establish what we have here, so let's do a brief history of the old City Hall for its decommissioning. On April 25, 1895,
Good job.
I've done it in half an hour, Dave. The Dunedin Public Library was created, the first library in Pinellas County. In the 1960s, we're already up to the 60s, Dave. The Dunedin City Commission pledged $55,000 towards the building of a new library, and the Friends of the Library, always present, organized a fundraising drive that netted an additional $10,000 for furnishings. The construction of the new library at 542 Main Street was authorized by the City Commission in 1963. Edward Eckert was the mayor. In May of 1964, the new library opened to residents at the corner of Main and Grant Streets, 542 Main Street. The architect was Fasnick and Schultz. Felix Contracting Company was the general contractor. After intense negotiations with the Publix supermarket chain, the city of Dunedin was able to lease space for the library and the Publix-owned Douglas Shopping Center on Douglas Avenue. Increasingly, this same site had been considered more than 10 years earlier, but had been rejected as unsuitable. Now the library would move into a leased space recently vacated by a W.T. Grant store. The city would eventually purchase the entire shopping center for $1 million. More than 100 people attended the grand opening of the new library at 223 Douglas Avenue on December 13, 1976. Shortly after, the former library building on Main Street became City Hall, 542 Main Street. 4 more pages, David. Dunedin began to operate the Dunedin TV public access channel in 1985. The production room was named the Gus Cooper Studio in 2003 after Francis Lauren Gus Cooper, who participated in more than 600 TV programs over a 22-year period in Dunedin. Staff vacated the City Hall administrative offices in March 2023 to move into the new City Hall on Loudon. The last official City Commission meeting was held on May 18, except for today, 2023, at the 542 Main Street, located at the old City Hall. Thus ends the reading of the history of this building.
Oh, I kind of thought it was more appropriate to hear the history of the building before we started talking about decisions that were made in it. So each one of us sort of got a piece of what we're going to talk about today. I'm honored to be able to talk about our past mayors in this building and some of the big decisions that they were a part of or spearheaded. And our first is Jerry Rem. From 1966 to 1971, he negotiated with 23 landowners to secure the land at Caladesi Island for state designation in 1965. Of course, Hammock Park was purchased by the city for $175,000, and your dad was a part of that. The Dunedin Fine Arts Center was built and opened to the public in 1975. And the Dunedin Historical Society relocated and saved the Andrews Historic Chapel to Hammock Park in 1970. Our next mayor was Cecil Engelbert from 1977 to 1982, and of course, he was known as Mr. Baseball. He was significant in bringing the Blue Jays to Dunedin with a partnership beginning in 1977. And then this former library building at 542 Main Street. became the old City Hall in 1976. Then we had Mary Bonner, who was my neighbor, 1982 to 1988, and she was one of the biggest Highland Games advocates I can remember. And then, of course, Manny Koutsourais from 84 to 88. He also continued the baseball advocacy to promote tourism in Dunedin. And then we can't forget Tom Anderson, who's sitting in this auditorium with us from 94 to 2002. He saved the public 25% off their taxes by switching from our Dunedin Police Department to the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office contract, which of course Mo was significantly a part of. And he built the Hale Senior Center and has been a huge advocate for our seniors even today. So thank you, Tom. And then we had John Doglione, who has since passed away from 2003 to 2006. He was a huge advocate for the Dunedin Marina, having been a past Commodore for the Dunedin Boat Club. He also was, I don't know how many years, we couldn't figure it out, but it was like decades that he served on the Suncoast League of Cities and Forward Pinellas, being very influential in funding projects with FDOT. And then of course we have Bob Hackworth from 2006 to 2009. He sends his regrets. He's in North Carolina right now. He was a huge part of bringing Weaver Park, or creating Weaver Park. He also was a huge part of the Harris Track, where that got annexed into our city and creating that. And today he was a serious part of our Gladys Douglas Hackworth Preserve. So he was huge on preserving green space. And then Dave Eggers, our former mayor and current county commissioner, who's here today from 2009 to 2018. He is recognized as a huge supporter of our veterans in our community, helping establish the Purple Heart Park and becoming a Purple Heart City. With that designation, he did that during his time as a commissioner, but also really pushed on that and expanded that program or that event under his leadership as mayor. He also was a huge part of creating the social services program during the recession, and was a big advocate to reduce taxes. I remember that very, very sincerely, so thank you, Dave, for all your work for Dunedin. And then after him, it was me. I feel very odd. I'm not going to read this list. I'm not doing that. I'm not reading a list about myself. I'm not doing that. But anyway, I'm still here, so hopefully I can still help. And I followed a lot of great leaders ahead of me. That's what I wrote on my wall. I was honored to serve after you, and I was honored for all of the things that you guys have taught me. So they deserve a huge hand, please. I think you are City Commission?
I am City Commission.
Okay, I'm going to pass this on to you then.
Fantastic.
So wonderful to see everybody here. We're here today to talk about City Hall and the decommissioning and the events that occurred here. But it's very hard, Julie did, and for me to continue, because it's hard to talk about the events or the people that have been in this building without talking about the residents, the citizens themselves. And it's just been so amazing. If you're such a nerd and you go back into the history and read Dunedin Times, and just to understand that every other city in Pinellas County truly is envious of what we have, and it's because of the residents that we have here. And so the number of residents, nothing that excites me more than a full gallery. And sometimes you don't know what that means. It's either very good or very bad, but it's just a reflection of democracy and residents wanting to be engaged in their community. And then to have some of those same residents step up for very little money and just want to play that role. And so the role of the commission really is that conduit back to the resident. They can certainly speak for themselves, but it's also very valuable for them to have that person that they can reach out to, and it's any number of us, and there's just been several through the years, and so it's really hard. I just didn't want to read through the list, because then that just becomes boring. For the people that said they were going to be here, just to acknowledge you all, certainly he was mayor and state representative, but Tom started out as a commissioner, so thank you, Tom, for everything that you've done for our community. Jack St. Arnold. Jack, did you make it today?
Here he is.
All right, Jack, thank you, sir.
I'm here and not there.
I feel that way too sometimes. Miss Deborah Carnes. You know, it just be the dates that she was on the commission, and I had to triple check them. So thank you very much.
There was a lot.
There was a lot. She's already been mentioned again with Bob Hackworth, and he started out as a commissioner. And so thank you, Bob, for everything that you've done. Dave Edgar's continuing to do a job representing Dunedin. Thank you, sir, for what you have done and what you're doing today, so thank you. Heather Gracie, Heather, are you here? Heather, thank you so much for everything you've done. And those are the ones that are there. We can certainly talk about the ones who are up here now. Mo Frady started out as a staff person, and now she's one of us.
Dark side.
And certainly our illustrious mayor, Julie Wojciechowski, starting out as a commissioner forever and a day, and then supposedly she's in her, coming up on her last term. Absolutely. And then John Torga is with us today as well, and so thank you, John, for everything that you've done for this commission. And so there is, again, we are just on the shoulders. Oh, hey, what? Oh my God.
She really did forget us.
I did. I would. I'm sorry. I'll buy you a cookie. The newest member of our commission, the sucker who would step up and do the job. But Rob has just done a fabulous job. It's like drinking from a fire hose, and he does that so well. So thank you. And so that's what I have. I'm trying to make it short and sweet. I'm wonderful. There you go.
We're gonna talk about city managers.
Thank you very much. I think city managers and staff. Could everybody who was on staff or is on staff now raise your hand, please? Thank you. Good representation. Thank you all for your service now and your past service in this lovely building. It's gonna miss you. It misses us already. I have to tell you, it's very humbling, because as I walk around City Hall, I've got to read this to you if I may. It says, "We miss you, we love you, John G. Hubbard, Dunedin's best city attorney." And this one right here says, "John Lawrence, city manager, John Lawrence, you're the city manager, best, my boss and my friend, love you, Marty." You see Mo, she started already. But it's very humbling, because I walk into my former office and there are all sorts of references to John Hubbard in there as well. So it's just, and it's wonderful that the folks on staff now and I was able to be here at this moment in the city's history. It was truly a privilege for all of us to be here and to be the ones that finally vacated the building. The ghosts are still here, by the way, just so you know. Yeah, you hear them late at night. But anyway, I just wanted to read off some of the city managers that were in this building and in this seat previously, and all the good work that they did to bring us to this point in our city's history. And I hope I didn't miss any. All of you here who've been here for years and years, you'll tell me if I missed one, I'm sure. So beginning in this building in particular, we moved into this building in 1974. As the Vice Mayor had said. So the first city manager in this building was Wallace Payne. I think some of you may remember Wallace Payne. Second was Richard Gary. Right? Yeah, you remember Richard? There you go. The third was Parwez Alam.
Yeah.
Yes?
You said it right, too.
I did. I practiced. And the second was none other than John Hubbard from 1985 to 2006. John Lawrence. How did I mess that up?
John
You
Hubbard's
got lots
body.
of directors here. Yeah. Dave said it, I'm not.
City Manager John Lawrence, along with City Attorney John Hubbard as well, he has to be mentioned, of course. So interim City Manager Maureen Franey. Interim City Manager Harry Gross. Rob DiSpirito from 2007 to 2016. Interim City Manager Doug Hutchins. And I have the pleasure of sitting here. Again, I thank them for their service and staff for your service as well. And most of all, I want to thank the residents of the city of Dunedin, all your taxpayers, for our brand new city hall. We are exceptionally grateful. Thank you.
Okay, so we have two more wonderful things, the past and the future. So I'm going to give the past to the most appropriate person, Commissioner Franny.
Okay, so there's no Kleenex up here, there's no water, there's no alcohol. This can be a problem as this, this is a misty day. As Nancy and Gungan and I were talking earlier, but I will do my best because I have no backup alcohol or Kleenex, so my category is memories. So this is a personal building. I came to Dunedin in the mid-'80s from Ohio, just a kid out of college. I'm now looking at you. And I will tell you that Nancy worked for me, and she told me, just to kind of lighten me up before this started, that she wrote on the wall back there that I was, a really tough boss and I was a pain in the ass. And I 100% believe that she did it. I went back to her to read it, so she didn't quite do it and say it like that. So. Anyway, kid out of college and started with the city about 2 months later as a management analyst in this building in that back office. Barb Fiddler, who would have been here, but she's got something, notable like COVID. So sorry, Barb, I don't know if you wanted me to say that. She would have been here because she was my first office partner. So the decommissioning is really personal to me. The commission that was in place when I first came was Mayor Mary Bonner, Vice Mayor Manny Kutsarias, who I thought would be here. I was surprised. Yeah. And unfortunately for him, I had a story I wasn't going to tell, but I might tell it now. Commissioner Dave Ramsey, Commissioner Jack Sella, and Commissioner Donald Schaefer. City Manager was Parwaz Alam, and of course shortly after that was John Lawrence, and of course City Attorney. Truly best city attorney. No one could ever stack up as a city attorney once I had John Lawrence. I would have worked at the county 9 years and I'm like, I drove him crazy. Like, you're not John Hubbard, you're too conservative, you don't think about how you can do the best for the citizens by pulling a string of legal things and making it happen. Crisis of the time was water and wastewater plants. Like, they were both, it was a crisis, dirty water, it was awful, and the wastewater, so both those were a big priority for John Lawrence, he acted accordingly. I want to intro the old guard that I see, and you guys will correct me if I miss somebody. So I want to recognize Marty Curnicio over there. Marty was a loyal administrative assistant to John Lawrence. And John always understood that everything was confidential with Marty except she'd tell no. And it was okay with him. And it was okay with him. But actually, I almost left early on because I was bored to death with the job I had. And Marty's the one that said, no, it's going to get better. Don't look for other jobs. Stay put. So what great advice. Nancy Duggan is over here, prior HR director. She moved on to the sheriff's office, and now she's with the Geary Group as a consultant, so she's done great things. Bob Ironsmith, who's back there, he's still with us. Keith Fogarty, who was instrumental in the first stormwater scheme, which was very controversial, but cutting edge at the time. We've got Barbara Hubbard. I have the base covered. I'm getting word from Peg and from the mayor about someone I might forget. I'm not, they're there. Barbara Hubbard's here on behalf of John Hubbard, that's the city attorney. Peg Cummings, my partner, but she did presentations, so she wasn't official. Pat Bradley, who took over, assistant to the city manager after Marty, and did fabulous. She was at the wastewater plant before that. And let's see, we've got Phyllis, who's still here as library director. She doesn't talk about it, you all get it. And Jack Martin, who started our Dunning television and was amazing. And of course, we've got Paul in the room. Paul, who, you know, left us in the dust for 10K water. And am I forgetting anybody else who's?
But Dr. Ron.
Yeah, but he's a commissioner. So I was doing staff people, but yes, yeah, Candy Barnett, absolutely, yes. So, yeah, she's picking up. Here we are now. Now, I will say that the two Johns would particularly not be that happy with me that I went to the dark side. So anyway, as elected official. So it is kind of a misty day. Nancy and I were talking earlier, like she said, you know, the building, 542 Main Street, it's not just a building.
Get it together.
I really need to clean it. That was Marty's job, get it together. It's not just a community's home, it's like a family home. I grew up professionally in this building. Spent 22 years of my life in this building. I was mentored by two great men who've been talked about a lot, John Lawrence and John Hubbard. John Lawrence was a planner, green space, walkable cities. John Hubbard, of course, land dedication ordinance, impact fees, no billboards, tree ordinance. I mean, you can go on and on. I mean, he was ahead of his time.
Sunshine.
Yeah, oh yeah, he did the best sunshine stuff. But I'm just gonna shoot from the hip on a few things that come to mind with this building, okay? First of all, proximity of the ladies' room to the chamber. Always a drama to go in the middle of a meeting, and then you could always hear the toilet flush. Very irritating, glad to be rid of that. So, back conference room, many of you will remember where staff would watch the commission meetings back there and completely make fun of the commission. And we always thought if there was a little bug back there, we'd all be fired. The famous candidate seat, Keith is sitting in the famous candidate seat. If people sat in that seat, they were probably running for the next election. When people stood up here to give citizen comment, you could see them in the background. So they'd have a lot of, you know, people would see it and say, wow, I guess they really want to be a commissioner. Airtime. The front tree. Front tree has history, but the front tree started to split. And nobody wanted to lose that tree, we still don't. We designed that big, huge metal thing that holds it together, right? And Mayor Anderson was talking at a Rotary or something, and he said, you know, we love our trees. We spent $5,000 keeping that tree together. And after the speech, I whispered to him, actually it was $25,000. And that was 20 years ago, a good 20 years ago. So, you know, Dunedin has always believed in its trees. Of course, I'm just gonna, since Deborah's here, I'm gonna give a nod to the famous Cosmopolitan Party for Suncoast League of Municipalities, where Deborah and I shared a room. And yeah, that was, Alan knows, because he saw the trash can loaded with alcohol when he came to pick up Deborah. A more serious one, in 1999, we were sitting back in the conference room with the Centennial Task Force, it was Centennial year. Vinny's back there, and Vinny had a heart attack. And it was a full-fledged, he was out, he was not breathing, heart attack. And we all thought Vinny was gone. And thanks to a couple, Pat Kennedy and Sonny Thornton, who jumped into action, and then our firefighters got here. Thankfully, he survived. It's the first time I went out to meet a fire truck, and I was trying to pull at the firefighters, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And that became the story of the firefighters. No, we don't go fast, we're methodical, so. July 2004, when I talk about personal stuff, I was finishing a public relations advisory proposal with the public relations advisory. Got a call that my dad had passed away. And I know Bob Ironsmith, that's a similar story in this building. So it touches your personal life in a lot of ways. September 11th, 2001, Tuesday. I was in my office as assistant city manager. Nancy, the HR director, was with me. And John Lawrence knocked on the door and came in and he said, hey, a small plane just hit the World Trade Center. Do you want to come in and watch it, on television? So it was like the only person that had a TV was John at that time. So we went and watched it. We saw live the second plane hit. So that always makes me think of this building. 1994, 95, I got called to the office by John Lawrence and I got a promotion to director of administration, which ultimately got retitled to assistant city manager, which is equivalent to deputy city manager now. And it was great, I was excited, right? So not too long after that, I got called to Mayor Anderson's office with John Lawrence, and they put me in charge of the police sheriff study, the most controversial issue with Benny's history, 22 months of hell, literally. And I said, well, thanks a lot. And trust me, government, the pay raise was not that great. So, but I will say on that, I learned a couple things. First of all, I never thought the commission would have the political will to do it. Tom Osborne, who's passed away, was the commissioner who brought it up. Jack St. Arnold, commissioner, was one of the second vote to do it. And then the mayor was the swing vote. Mayor Anderson voted yes. And it was hard at the time because there was a lot of fear-mongering going around. We had a good police department. But at the end of the day, the feeling was, like 2 years later, people would say, hey, the service is really good with the sheriff. It's probably at least equivalent. And we saved $2.2 million a year. So we're over $50 million and allowed for 25% tax decrease. So. I will say I learned a valuable lesson from Tom too, because the study, Nancy was on the study committee with me as well, and the study wasn't ready for prime time, but it was the due date, and we needed 2 weeks. And Mayor Anderson rightly said to me, but it was a good lesson for me too, like, at the end of the day, they will not forget that report was late by 2 weeks, but they will remember if it's wrong. So we got the 2 weeks, and the report stood the test of time. That was Tom's style. Okay, so trust me, I'm not going to go on and on for a lot longer, but I have to tell one really funny story, and because I think it gives you a window into how much fun we would have, how much of a family we were, not just doing kind of cutting edge kind of stuff. But the big thing in the day was our costume contests, right? And people would do different departments would do team costumes, and the whole, morning of Halloween there was no work getting done, I guarantee you. But it was great team building. So, but for the first 15 years, John Lawrence was like, yeah, I'm not dressing up. That's not professional. I'm not doing that. So about the 16th year that he's city manager, we're sitting around City Hall and this lady comes in, okay? This big lady, huge lady, she's got a dress lady, but nobody recognized the lady. It was John Lawrence. and appropriately the name was Lily the Cleaning Lady. And Nancy and I actually took him over to see John Hubbard across the street, and John Hubbard's just like, yeah, that's not Lawrence, right? Tell me that's not Lawrence. So that started this kind of a weird Halloween thing where John was a coffee clatcher, and those with the streets back. The coffee clatch was its own thing, kind of an all men's club. And he dressed up as a coffee klatcher, he dressed up as a nun, then he dressed up as Mrs. Claus, gave out Christmas cookies at the ladies' breakfast. I mean, and so I remember when he was Mrs. Claus, we took him back over to Hubbard's office, and Hubbard was just like, yeah, I'm getting way worried about you, Lawrence. I'm so worried about you. You're losing it. Before I just make a final statement, I did want to say, like, I did leave Dunedin in 2006 to go to Pinellas County. Like, something happened in that regard. Like, some upstart commissioner won election at that time, and I thought, yeah, I'm not dealing with this one. It's all good. It's all good. But of course, Julie and I have become, very respected colleagues and friends. And that's a great thing. So in closing, I just want to say thank you for putting up with the stories. I could go on, and I know you don't want to hear them all. But my 22 years working in this building shaped me in a lot of ways, as a person and a professional. But we were family and we had fun. This place was great. And I think, and many of us would say this when we were there, people would ask you, like, why are you staying so long in Dunedin? You guys are so talented. Why don't you, go to a bigger city? Why don't you go to a business? And, but I think we don't answer the same way. I mean, because Dunedin, although it's small with 38,000 people, it's always been, forward thinking and cutting edge and challenging. And that's what you want in your career. You want all that. And it also was a family. So it felt good. And you didn't feel like you were missing anything. And the other thing I came to learn through my years was Dunedin had always been that way. We stood on the shoulders of past leaders that always thought progressively, always thought forward thinking, and Honeymoon Island, all the things that got done. So Dunedin's a special place, and this is a special building with lots of memories. Thank you.
So next, we're going to talk about the future, but now that you've told the stories, I have to add a few of my own.
Do it.
I
told you we should add champagne.
Yeah, well, I remember coming in this building, I worked during the week, so I remember coming into this building on Saturdays, and all you could ever, because nobody was here except me, and all I could ever hear were the squirrels or rats or whatever they were all over. And then, it wouldn't be too long before I'd come in on a Monday evening and there would be something dead on my office floor. But I also remember a story I shared. You were telling the story about me, so I have to tell the story about Deborah. I shared an office with Deborah when I was first elected, and for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure every person in this room knows, she didn't speak to me. She was had nothing to do with me. And so we had to have, like,
There were reasons for that.
are you trying to say there were good ones?
I'm not going to put a judgment on it.
Anyway, she wasn't speaking, so we had to have a certain amount of, space between the time that we would pass each other in the hall and go into our offices. I think I was 9 to 1, or she was 9 to 1 and I was 1 to 5. I don't remember what it was, but there was a schedule. And because I was coming in on the weekends previous, I never could get access to the printer, and I wanted a printer in the office, and Deborah was not having it. And she went to the interim city manager and told her,
Which was me.
I'm walking out if you let her have a printer. So yeah, that's my story about Deborah, and there's a second part to it, but I'm not going to tell that part. So yeah, I mean, but I think what it says though is that we all kind of, like what we were saying before, this is a home for a family, and sometimes families can be dysfunctional and quirky, but usually you all come back together, and I couldn't have two better colleagues in my entire life than Deborah and Mel, so that makes it good. So now Rob's going to talk to us about the future.
Don't cry though,
No, but I will tell a funny story though. So, I was in my first or second meeting here and, there's.
Mike's not on. Would you pass me up?
I think you
You gotta hit them.
hit the, unmute it.
Middle button.
There you go. So it was the, so it was the first or second meeting, and there's this little switch over here on the dais, and I'm sitting here playing with the little cover on it, and I'm pushing the switch, and I'm looking at the city manager, and I go, "What does this do?" And she said, "Well, the sheriff may be showing up any second."
Panic button.
And, well, the sheriff never showed up. There was another reason for that, but I won't go into it. But let's get into the future here. You know, the Navy has a very similar tradition in terms of the decommissioning of our ships. And, you know, the one thing about that is that when the ship's decommissioned and subsequently dismantled, the spirit of that ship still remains. And the spirit remains because of the robust histories that that ship embodied. It remains because of the people that served on the ship. And as a result of that, you know, this building, home to the Dunedin Public Library and the City Hall, is absolutely no exception. And the commemoration of the events, the honor of the legacy, the remembrance of the history of what this building embodied will go forward. February, we had a discussion in terms of what to do with this space here. And subsequently, the decision was made to respectfully dismantle the building, but maintain the space as an open space with reminders of what this building meant to this community, what the reminders of what the people that served in this building did for this community. And so as part of that, and back to the respectful dismantling, the intent is that we're going to be preserving all the grand oaks on the lot here. And the space will have public restrooms, open areas, public art to the small park, while preserving the adjacent parking. Initial plans included incorporating some of the existing business elements, the building elements into the park, in terms of bricks, signage to commemorate specific events, and the water fountain will be preserved either on this property or in another space. And so the focus is to provide a really nice space that transitions across the downtown area here and maintain a remembrance to the city's heritage and legacy and history. Thank you.
So we do want to open it up to the public for anybody that wants to share some thoughts. So anybody that wants to come forward and say anything about their memories in the building, you're not required. We do have a couple other things on our program, but we'd love to hear from you. We don't have to be the only ones to talk about what a great building this was. Eggers, come on, Eggers. So Tori is going to give you right there.
Thank you. Excuse my back to you all. Yeah, this is got special memories for me too. I remember starting at the Chamber of Commerce and then saying, we need you to go down to that building. It's a round building down there, and attend. I thought they said 2 years of meetings. And it was really 2 meetings. So I was down here for 2 years, sitting over here with a couple of ladies, just watching the commission unfold. And then I had the business community kind of ask me to participate as an elected official. And I just loved it. I love being a commissioner in this town, working with some of the folks that are here, Pat and yourself, and just so many of you that I've worked with and had the pleasure to help the residents and this moving the city forward. Just wonderful times, and some of the memories that you shared about the things that go on. I'd like to have been here that night when Manny called out Tom Osborne on the dais and said, "We'll take it outside," you know. So you know, and he's not here to defend himself, so Manny, I don't know if I got the story straight, but there was a lot of, you know, encounters, close encounters, if you will. But certainly the one thing that I'm really proud of this community, back in 04, 05, Commissioner Hackworth brought forward the idea of switching names on a street to Martin Luther King, and moving forward with a program to celebrate that every year. And the commission then was very much supportive and really got the community going. And Clem Bell leading the effort, the local pastor here. It's just been great for the city. And then how they embrace just about everybody. The strong LGBTQ community here. And this city just does wonderful things. And I just couldn't be more proud of what this city is and has become. And the residents are the foundation. I mean, I can't go to any other community, and I've been involved in a lot of other communities in the last 8 years that have the passion and zeal and vision and commitment. And boy, you heard from everybody on every issue, but that's what makes this city special. So I just really want to say thank you to the residents for making my time here, but certainly the city is what it is because of you. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Come on down, Jack.
Probably because it's so bad from here.
Waiting for an agenda item. Those that knew both Johns, they had a boiling point. I used to enjoy sitting, waiting and watching, because John, would sit for Jennifer's, and you could tell when John's boiling point was coming, because his face would get red. John sitting next to him would start fidgeting. Because one of the worst things you could do, and I learned it from John Harvard. I made the mistake of writing a resolution one time and sending it to John for staffing. And he called me, and my secretary at the time, she says, "John Harvard's on the phone," and he doesn't sound happy. But, one of the, two things that, John's patience, his face would get redder and redder. But John Harvard would start fidgeting when, a developer would start having, development case law. And that was the worst thing you could do to John Harvard. Don't tell him the things that he wrote that is across this whole state. Yeah. He wrote impact law. A lot of people don't realize what these two gentlemen came out of this little town at that time. That time was 32,000. Don't mention, or storming the fee. That was written by that gentleman. Yeah. He had some help. The genius that came out of those two people was unmatched. And it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to work with them. And all the people that I would mention it. So.
Thank you, Keith.
All right, what about Nancy? Nancy's gotta have a story or two.
Come on, Nancy. I don't have a story, but I think it's important for a lot of people in here. Tom Anderson and Eggers, Jack back in the day, definitely Deborah. So I grew up in Dunedin. I went to San Jose Elementary, Dunedin Middle, Dunedin High. I was, as a teen, I was in the youth teen program with Peg. Peg was my softball coach. When I was a teen, I worked here during high school. I started at the library where Phyllis started. The city kept me on when I went to college. I worked here for 28 years. Most of those years was in this building, so it's a very special place for me. Working with Paul and Keith, Bob Ironsmith and I feel like we grew up together. So I don't know if you guys realize the impact you have on the youth and people, because you guys were such a good mentor to me. I lasted 38 years in the public sector and was able to retire this year. And so I'm very grateful, and I'm very grateful that it all happened in this little building.
What about Peg? Peg's gotta have a story.
Jeez. Well, I hate to bring up a dark story, but I need to. My memory, maybe I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of staff. It wasn't always our most favorite place to be over in that staff table. One time, my director, Pat Kennedy, bless her soul, was in Tallahassee seeing a football game. She was a big Knowles fan. And she left me, moi, to defend the recreation budget. And one of our commissioners, I will not mention the name, was obsessed with the pool. I mean, he drove us crazy. So, I presented that part of the budget, and I didn't even know enough about it. I prepped, because it wasn't under me. I'm in the back room where all the staff made fun of the commission. And one of my colleagues says, Peg, he's calling you a liar. He's calling you a liar. And I'm like, oh my God. So he was. So I come out and I stand in the back and I'm looking at Manny, who's the mayor, like, please let me come up. And Manny said, Peggy, can you straighten this out? And I went up there and I explained and kind of just gave the facts. And I said, with all due respect, Commissioner, I don't even know enough to give you the wrong information. This is the correct data. So put it to rest. Of course, I am like a nervous wreck. I can't wait to get out of here. And a gentleman was watching, an older man, I still don't know who he is. And he said, as I left, he goes, Peg, you did an amazing job. Don't let them get you down. Don't let them get you down. And I couldn't wait to get out to my old Blazer vehicle, and I cried almost all the way home. But anyway, the essence was a few days later, I got a memo copied to me and to the boss from Jan Rickey, who was our city clerk, saying, I'm telling you, she's a gem. She didn't lie. She represented your division with such class, and I want to thank her. So, that's my memory. I also was told that I was promoted in this building to Pat's position, and I also had a wonderful send-off retirement from Mayor Eggers and all of you that I will never forget. Thank you.
Jack, you're an oldie, but I'm looking at you. You're an oldie but goodie.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Can I tell a funny story where I have a story about Deborah?
Go right ahead.
I got emotional, I forgot. So, talking about family and things that have happened in this building, I'll never forget when my office was in the front here, this front office. And I was walking into the back, probably to go ask Marty a question on how to do something, and Deborah says, that skirt, I need that skirt, I have an event. It was like a tartan skirt I had on, and I was like, okay, well, when's the event? Because I'll bring it home and wash it and bring it back for you. And she says, no, it's tonight, I need it now. And I'm like, well, then I need your jeans, because I can't just take off my skirt. So we literally went in the bathroom, I wrote on the wall, Deborah, we went in the bathroom and I gave her my skirt and she gave me her jeans.
That is so Deborah.
Hey, Mayor, could you tell the staff that we did have a bug in that room back there?
We heard everything.
That's why at the new city hall, they have to sit out front.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask just one more person and then we're gonna move on. Pat Bradley has to know where all the bodies are buried. Come on, Pat, you gotta have a story. She's handing you a microphone, so you can't say no. No?
Or Marty, get Marty.
Okay.
That's where our bodies are all blood.
You gotta have a story, you ladies.
One of you two have to have a story.
I don't want to stand up, but I think one of the best stories that tells about how close we were as a family.
Yeah, give her a microphone. Not that she doesn't have a.
The blood bank truck came to give blood, so I thought, give blood. Well, they used the wrong kind of needle in my arm. So that night I went home with the bandage on and I just ignored it. And the next morning I took a shower and it spouted out like a. So I slapped on some bandages, put on a, it was winter time, sweater, and came to work. That's what you do. We had a meeting in the conference room. It was John Hubbard, John Lawrence, and I was sitting, Mr. Hubbard was sitting next to me, and John Lawrence was at the end of the table. And all of a sudden I looked down and my whole sleeve was saturated with blood. So John Hubbard looked at me and said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "I don't know, I gained blood." And then I'm going absolutely white, and John Lawrence looked at her and said, "Hey Hubbard, you take care of her. It's not my job today." So Mr. Hubbard got up from the table in the meeting, and he took me to the Meese thing, where they said I was in a state of shock, and I kind of dozed off, and then I opened my eyes to find Alice Anderson and Tom Anderson standing by my bed.
Oh, that's a great story.
Yeah, so that was our family. I mean, it was just incredible.
That is our family, and that's what we said. This is a.
And my only other one was this: John Lawrence was very thrifty, and he didn't do anything like buy fancy clothes or anything. And he used to take his shoes off when he would give me dictation. And one day I looked down, and he had a hole in his sock. So I said, "Mr. Lawrence, you have a hole in your sock." He said, "Yeah, I know." So I said, "You can't walk on the dais tonight because you'll take your shoes off and everybody will see the hole." So on my lunch hour, I went to Bell's Outlet. I bought him a pair of socks and came back and put them on his chair. And he put them on. And then later in the day, he called me in and he put his feet out and there was a hole in the other foot. You have a hole in the other sock? He said, "Yeah, I know." And then he was always about joking. Then he started to laugh. He said, "Yeah, I was hoping for another pair of socks." So those are my stories. But I had lots of them.
Right in that two-story old rickety house on Virginia, and I went there for first, second, and third, and we would walk down here around Easter time, and we would make our own Easter bonnets, and we would come here and sit in the middle of the room and read library books with our Easter bonnets on. So that's my big memory of this building. So we have two more things to do, and then we'll let you guys. Oh, Tom, you want to come on up?
Right behind you, Tom. Tom.
Thank you. I wanted to thank John Lawrence for all of the great advice that he gave me while I was mayor. And also John Hubbard, who gave me a lot of good advice too. And Bo Freeney, who headed up the study on the police versus the sheriff decision. Thank you for all of that work that you did. Just a little background on the sheriff's issue. The vote on that issue was 2-2. And I had to cast a deciding vote to go with the sheriff. It was very controversial. We ended up saving, as was indicated, $25 million. We reduced taxes by 25%. We guaranteed every police officer a job with the sheriff. And about 80% went, but about 20% just couldn't handle it. And incidentally, the current sheriff is a former city of Dunedin police officer, Bob Galtieri.
Yeah.
So I think that the decision that we made was a great decision, but it was very controversial. My wife was nervous about it. She kept the blinds down because police cars kept driving by our house. And we were wondering what the hell was gonna happen. And fortunately, nothing serious happened. But it was a very controversial decision. But after the first year, then people, I think, came around and really understood how important it was. As a result, we were able to build a new library. We built a new senior center. And we reduced taxes by 25%, as I indicated. So it turned out to be, a good decision for the city. But thank you all for all of your work that you've been doing over the past years. And good luck in the future.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, we now have a presentation that I'm going to turn over to Commissioner Franny.
Thank you. On, right? So maybe we can have Alan Baumstein come forward, maybe right up here. So Alan reached out to both the mayor and I, and about the plaque that was on the City Hall, the redone City Hall in 1978. And both the mayor and I thought it's probably going to be part of the new building because we've been doing that a lot. And we ended up checking on that theory and ended up, no, it wasn't. We just decided that that wasn't the way we were going to go with the old plaque. We're thinking about things that we should keep the plaque for, but when Alan talked to me, it was obviously something very valued to him. And he actually shared the story with me the other day that this building was redone in 1978 by Creative Contractors, which is your company, and is it next year? It's 50 years? 50 years, and this was the first government project they had, and it's the first time that their name was actually on a plaque. So it was very important, and obviously as the 50th anniversary comes, it's something he will treasure, and that's, I think, when we really thought about, do we want to keep it in some way or give it to somebody who's really going to treasure this plaque? And he did share with me a couple letters because it was Mayor Engelbert at the time, and he shared with me the story that because they really hadn't done a government project, they were the low bidder, and Mayor Engelbert was like, I don't know, are these guys really ready for prime time? Can they do the work? And
4 years old.
4 years old at that time in terms of their business, but hadn't done a government building. So anyway, I will present this to Alan, and Alan, if you'd like to say a word or two.
Smile. Oh, really? Okay. Sure. All right, I'll just get in there. Okay, Rob, push your chair together. Push it over. All right. Here we go. Got it? There we go. Okay. All right. What are we supposed to be doing here? Everybody will go with us. Everybody gets to go? Everybody? Careful. Okay. Who wants to try? Come on, guys. Come get a hammer. Here, we'll take it.